One of the things I kind of like to study, just keep up on, is this thing called positive psychology. Positive psychology is the study of the psychology of why certain people are happy and why are some people not happy. And they came out with this interesting study that I thought was fascinating, where they said on happiness, taking polls of happiness, that basically, this is kind of surprising, when you're in your 20s and 30s, you're really not very happy. It's very sporadic, and I hate to say this, you're not that happy. It's up and down. But then from 30 to 50, this is even worse. It's actually fairly steady, but it slowly decreases. I know, great news, right? But here's a really interesting art. After age 50, for most people, actually after that, your happiness starts to, 40s and 50s, your happiness starts to increase, which is really kind of bizarre, right? So it's on the increase in your 40s and 50s, mostly 50s. It starts to increase. But here's where it gets interesting. By age 70, and this is really bizarre, at age 70, this is bizarre. For most people, it splits in two. Either after 70, you are at the happiest of your life, or you're incredibly bitter. There's just no little middle ground. For the other people, you're in your 20s and 30s, you're kind of in the middle ground. Everybody's kind of together. After 70, it's a sharp split. Either you're happy or you're bitter. I find that absolutely amazing, right? And you have to ask why. Well, why is because, this sounds kind of strange. During your 40s and 50s, you have a little bit of a career and things are a little bit more steady, so you get a little bit more feedback. So you're a little bit more happy, right? But then, guess what? You retire. And then after 70, if all your happiness was on your career, it's no longer there. And so they found this paradox that the more successful people are, the harder it is after retirement because you got a lot of bonus there, feedback. Does that make sense? So even though you're more successful, you're actually could be more depressed when you're 70. So I'm going to try and be least successful now. No, that was not the point. But the point is you're so concerned on the external success is your positive feedback. But once you turn 70, you no longer have a career, and then at 70, you're retired, so you're on a fixed income, and then the health problems come. So really, everything on the exterior, no offense, it is falling apart. So why would they test out to be the happiest? Well, because those are the ones that long-term, they worked internally on making themselves happy, not on things on the outside. So that's why one group, they just skyrocket with happiness, even though they're at the weakest point of their life. Internally, they're the happiest. But if you never worked on anything, then really, you're not going to like the 70s. Because everything starts to fall apart. And if that's where you put all your hope, wow, you're in trouble. And so, like, for me, I know this sounds strange. I do want to end up outrageously happy. I want to end up outrageously happy. So my philosophy is always, why leave that to chance? Why leave that to the slings and arrows of fortune? Why not do something now? Why not be wise and work on the interior now of your soul so when you're post-70, you can be outrageously happy? That's the goal. So why not work on it now? And in a way, it reminds me of today's first parable in the readings. All the readings deal with really gardening or farming. And the first reading is about this seed. The kingdom of God is like planting a seed. Please, Jesus, what does that mean? Like, what does that mean? The kingdom of God is like planting a seed. Well, it's like this study. It's like gardening or farming. That you plant the seed, but then just to garden or farm, it's a lot of hard work. Day in, day out, day in, day out. You have to pull weeds, water, da-da-da-da-da. Does that make sense? That's what the kingdom of God is like, that you're working on it day after day. You're working on it so that you can reap a great harvest. But what a lot of people try and do is just cram it in all of a sudden. That they'll wait till their 70s, and then they'll work on like their soul and being interior. That might be a little too late. You can't cram in gardening. You can't say, well, I'm going to have a harvest tomorrow, so I'm just going to pull an all-nighter and then like yell at the plants. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of tiny work, day after day after day, of pulling weeds. Sins. I have my sins. I'm doing really well on anger. That used to be a lot of weeds there. Now I have anxiety and I'm a little judgmental, but a lot of pulling weeds, but also watering. So the watering is, you have to pray daily. So I don't know if you know this, but Catholics, our ancient tradition, and Jews, is to pray 5 times a day, each day. And then once a week, go to the Eucharist. So you're always working on the internal. So I want to be outrageously happy. But unfortunately, you have a lot of people who think, well, I'll just work on that later. And I'll give you an example. It's like you can't cram in gardening overnight. You can't do the same thing with spirituality. Where I get called to the hospital because, God forbid, something terrible has happened. And they haven't really worked on any of the interior resources of their soul. So when something bad happens, they want to say, well, Father, pray. And I'm more than willing to pray. I pray for actually everybody every day. That's one of my things I like to do. But I can't give you the fruits of spirituality. That's in your own garden, in your own soul. Does that make sense? And so, to me, it's always if you're waiting for the emergency then to call on the power of spirituality, you've waited too long. You want to build up the momentum. So for me, it's always like asking somebody to start their car in 5th gear. You really should have been working on this all along. That's what the parable of the seed is about. You work on it so that hopefully all of us, when we reach 70, we are outrageously happy. Not just happy, but holy. You have to constantly be working on your soul. That's what the kingdom of God is like. Or there's a second parable. Now, the second parable is completely different, so you people are going to get your money's worth tonight. I'm giving you 2 homilies for the price of 1. The second parable is much different. The kingdom of God is like a mustard seed. Well, what the heck does that mean? So you have to know a little background. And the background is the first reading. The first reading is from this prophet. Now, I'm going to explain it to you. In the Bible, religion or the church is symbolized as a tree. So you have to understand that. So Judaism is a tree. And the problem with them is that Israel has become corrupt. Religion has become corrupt. They put more of their faith in politics than God. And so this eagle from the east comes and ruins the tree, tears off the tops of the trees. That's Babylon. Babylon's symbol was an eagle. Comes and it takes and it attacks Israel, makes Israel a vassal state, and then it takes all the leaders of Israel and the artists and leaders and hauls them off to Babylon. So then the tree decides, this is in the first reading, the tree decides, well, we'll get a bigger eagle and to fight that eagle. So they call on Egypt, who's also an eagle. And they make this deal with Egypt to fight the other eagle. The only problem is Babylon is more powerful. So it comes and almost destroys the tree. Okay, so that's a background. Did I lose you on that? Because they would have got that. So I lost you? Okay, well, take a nap. So then God comes in, and this is God's promise. And God says, no, I too will take a shoot from the tree, and that's Judaism. God's going to take a shoot of Judaism, plant it, and it will become this huge tree that will welcome all the birds of the sky in. Now, the birds, those are Gentiles. The Babylons, the Egyptians, they're all Gentiles. And this tree will be so big, it'll offer shelter to all the Gentiles. That's the prophecy. So when the Messiah comes, he's going to plant a new tree from the old tree. So, And remember, the tree symbolizes church. Do you know what the new tree is? Please tell me, please, Jesus. Anybody know what the new tree is? Okay, you can go to communion. The rest of you people, yeah. The new tree is the Catholic Church. So, this parable, Jesus says the kingdom of God is like planting a mustard seed. Mustard seeds are very, very tiny. And you plant this mustard seed, and the mustard seed is actually a bush. And the bush becomes a mighty tree that houses all the birds. The Jews would have known what he's saying. He's the Messiah. He's the one who's going to plant this new tree. But the shocking part is he said mustard seed. Because Jews would have known, it says in the Mishnah is this commentary on the Bible, never plant mustard in your garden. Because the mustard plant is so aggressive, they consider it kind of a weed. It takes over and it holds the ground. So it's known to be stubborn because it holds the ground. But that's why in the Mishnah, you're not allowed to plant the mustard seed. So they would have been shocked that the Messiah says mustard, because that's considered a weed. And the weed becomes a tree? Well, it does. Think about this. For the first 300 years of our religion, we were considered a weed. We were persecuted, right? And yet, over the centuries, we did grow into this great tree. The other thing about the mustard, not only is it stubborn, which faith is, a little bit of faith is being stubborn. Not only was it hated, but it becomes this mighty tree. The other thing is that the mustard plant is used in Judaism and in Roman medicine as a healing remedy. So what it's saying is that the tree is supposed to offer healing to the world and shelter to the Gentiles. And actually the Catholic Church has. Look at us. All of us are Gentiles. The tree has welcomed all of us. Does that make sense? But here's the point. The tree is supposed to be this sheltering force of healing and shelter for the abused in the world who have no place. And this is my issue, but I get really angry when people say negative things about the Catholic Church, not just because I'm Catholic. I mean, I say things about the Catholic Church. But the problem is that, especially my time as a missionary, what I learned is nobody does more in the world for helping the poor, defending life, education, health care. It was the Catholic Church. You add up all the other Protestant churches together, and they don't even touch the amount of work that we do. No force in 2,000 years has done more for the poor and health care and sheltering life than the Catholic Church. No institution. So, yeah, we do have our problems. I call them deacons. But we have problems. But I just don't know why more people don't defend the Catholic Church. We are the fulfillment of the prophecy. Christ did plant us. We are taken from Judaism. And we have become this large church that does amazing amount of things. So I just love this parable for this reason. Yeah. We are that, but we should also remember that is our role in the world. Not just saying that we're Catholics, but united together, we're the ones who defend and shelter life. I'm proud of that. So, two homilies. One, work on the garden of your soul. Don't wait till, you're 70. You want to start on it now so that you can be outrageously happy. Secondly, be proud. We're part of the church, the tree, that for 2,000 years has offered a lot of shelter and healing. So on that, it is Tom and Cookie's 50th anniversary.